And so let's see here. 1 Corinthians 11:17, right? Now in this that I declare unto you, I praise you not. And so was it a rebuke or an affirmation? A rebuke, all right? So this was, you come together not for the better, but for the worse. I'd call that a rebuke. And so specifically, what are the two things that Paul brings up with regard to how they were taking the Lord's Supper? And what did he hear? He heard that there were divisions and heresies, right? Now, what does he say? If that's happening, stop. Thank you. Yes, stop. Right. He says, when you come together, that's not to eat the Lord's Supper, is what he says. So if that's happening, stop. And I'm not going to repreach it, don't worry. So then you go through and you look at the example he gives of the meal fellowship and the selfishness and lack of unity that was happening there. And then he gives personal examination, etc. So, but and he ends with, and I think I have it in my notes, but he ends with, because of this, they were not taking the Lord's Supper. Paul says, I praise you not again. And he asks the question, despise ye the church of God and shame them that have not. And then he says that take actions that will not, cause division, that will have unity, so that you wouldn't come together under condemnation. That's how he ends it. It's like, don't come together under condemnation because you're not being unified. And again, the overarching thing was this kind of social unity, and I hesitate to even say it that way because I think it can be taken the wrong way, like a social justice or something like that. No. It's like it was just in how we treat each other as a church body. Interpersonal, yeah, it's good. But as in not just doctrinal. So here's the question for you guys tonight. What are some reasons maybe that there would be church division? And again, I'm not talking like the latest flavor of doctrinal heresy or whatever that's flying around, but kind of the first idea of just division. Are you raising your hand, Christelle? Okay. There you go. Boom, I got it. Offenses. Absolutely. That's good. That's good. No, you give me one. That's good, and then we'll look for other people. Yeah, hand. Were you raising your hand? Yeah. Pride, right? Which ties exactly into I'm offended, and I'm usually offended because I'm prideful, right? About that, absolutely. And then that. So how does that either one of you or somebody else? How does that then move into division? Yeah. 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 Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly right what was happening in Corinth. And it was very much kind of socioeconomic, right, stratification that was happening. But that happens here as well, which is like, well, outside the church, you probably wouldn't be my friend, right? And so inside the church, you're not really my friend either. It's kind of that idea. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything, other things that would cause division? Larry. Jealousy, that's good. I had that one too. Yeah, jealousy, absolutely. So give me an example. Yeah. Dude, that is so funny because it's so true, and it seems almost like a hyperbole, right? But it's not. Somebody comes in, I cannot, and then it goes into then offense, right? And then it just, these things snowball. But yeah, that's absolutely true. Jealousy. That's why. So okay, you're when you go into other churches and you're on deputation, you're like, where I'm gonna sit in somebody's place that so you're just like I have been in a couple churches where usually they're older people. They've probably been in that seat for like ever, and where clearly I've They let me know that was their spot. They're like, that's okay. Oh, it's okay. Jealousy, absolutely. And you can have jealousy with, like what Brother Johnny was saying, right? And the fact that you do make more than me. You do have, maybe what the world would consider a higher status job or education, or, sometimes it could even be like your job or ministry in the church. Like you're your pastor's favorite or whatever it is, right? But you can have the jealousy around that. Absolutely. Other things that could drive division. Nick.
Those that think they're more righteous than everybody else.
That doesn't happen, right? Especially in Baptist churches. No, that doesn't happen. No, absolutely. Especially, and I think the churches that are more prone to this are churches that are going to try and hold a higher bar for doctrine, right? That we want it to be right. We want there to be unity in doctrine. And then sometimes you can think, well, we're right. And so therefore we're better, right? And usually that attitude, if it happens corporately, as in we're right, and so then we're better than everybody else, will inevitably seep inside the church so that I'm more right than you, and so I am better than you. It's not just now about us against everybody else, right, in Christendom. It's now I'm more right than you even within the church, because that spirit, right, is contagious and it grows, and it's a prideful Pharisaical spirit.
I've seen age cliques.
Oh, yeah. Age cliques.
Oh, yeah. You're supposed to say amen if we're
Oh, yeah. But you know what's funny though is
Small, but
right. But you see it a lot of times with like younger people that will not cross age boundaries to engage with older people. And obviously it happens this vice versa as well, but especially what you see in a small church, right? Well, nobody's there my age. And there's some truth to that, because there is some peer-based fellowship and mentoring that should happen. But reality is that we should be engaging across all different spectrums of age, right, socioeconomic, everything, and that sometimes doesn't happen. Absolutely, and can cause division. Good. Now, why is it important to think about things that could cause division? Yeah, these aren't super tough questions, right? But absolutely, because so you can watch out for them, because even in good churches, you can see some of these cliques and different things in various stages of growth, and it is something you need to watch out for. Anything else? Yeah, Lori.
One interesting one that came to mind is I don't know how to call it, but like when you feel like people are leaving you out, when it's like when
Yeah.
internally you're struggling with confidence or with like the ability to
Yeah.
kind of assert yourself. Yeah, like it's like assumed rejection though, and then that festers. I don't know what to call that, but like I felt that way before in other circles where like maybe it's me, like maybe they're just doing their thing, like they're not thinking about me, but like
Right.
it's maybe self-centeredness, maybe like feeling like they should be thinking about me, or like I don't know, and then
Yeah, kind of the classic example is, right, the introvert who comes and sits on their phone, doesn't engage anybody, and this is why I didn't really like that church, because, they weren't really engaging. Well, okay, but there is a two-way kind of thing, like if you're not going to put down your phone. And again, I try to pick the easy example there, but I think we can all, I am an introvert. I am an introvert, and so I can engage people. It just takes energy. Like it takes, what? Johnny he gets fed off of that. No, for me, it takes energy, and so I have to make sure that I do that, right? And so, yeah, we can feed into that as well, and then be like, oh, well, I wasn't I wasn't a part of that conversation, and versus others that would go insert themselves into the conversation, not in a bad way. Absolutely, absolutely. Many of these issues, jealousy, offenses, pride, right? All of those. Many of these are dealt with via forgiveness. And that's something where not everything, right? When you think about cliques, but the things that result after the clique, like I was excluded, well, that's when forgiveness, right, actually needs to come through. And I'm telling you, I think there are two things, and outside of just the general umbrella of charity of love, which is necessary, but outside of that, there are two things, which is prayer and forgiveness, that I think if we exercise regularly as a church will help us probably more than anything else avoid. We won't be able to 100% avoid offenses, right? You can't, right? You're not going to be able to avoid somebody being jealous completely. But if we appropriately seek and give forgiveness, much of this, right, can be just cut off at the base. Brother Larry. Absolutely. And honestly, I mean, if we're being really honest, usually you praying affects you the most, right? Which is, look, I don't like to be slighted. I don't like to be left out. I don't like to be whatever it is that I'm perceiving. Or I don't like it when people, behave in that way. But praying and softening our heart and then asking the Lord to help us. And sometimes though, and I've got some references. I just want to remind us maybe a little bit of what the Bible says about forgiveness, because I do think this is important. And again, we're a small church, but man, bitterness can swell up in a small church just like it can a large church. And you could have two people and have division. Really, you can. Ephesians 4:32 says, "And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you." Right? Man, if you think about it, those who have experienced the greatest forgiveness, Christians, ought to be the greatest forgivers. Right? We ought to. For God for Christ's sake hath forgiven us. Colossians 3:13. "Forbearing one another and forgiving one another. If any man have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do ye." Mark 11:25. "And when ye stand praying, forgive if ye have aught against any, that your Father also, which is in heaven, may forgive you your trespasses." Right? We ought to be right horizontally before we start asking for things in our relationship vertically. And of course, Matthew 6:15 speaks to that as well. "But if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses." And James 5:16, "Confess your faults one to another, and pray one for another, that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much." Man, we ought to be very, very quick at asking for, seeking, and giving forgiveness. We ought to be very, very quick. And you know what happens, though, is pride comes up. Because, you're just being stupid. I don't need to, you shouldn't be offended. You've had a situation like that, right? Where somebody was offended. They're being dumb. They shouldn't be offended. What they thought happened didn't really happen. You're like, it's not a big deal. But still going through, right, the process of saying, and we had to do this recently. Did I offend you? And just being very blunt about it. Because it seems like, right, there's that tension, it seems like something's wrong. And I think maybe I might have offended you. And well, and people don't like admitting that, but man, if I did, that was not my intention. I am so sorry. Here's what I meant to do, and whatever it is, but just being very, very quick with that and not allowing, here's what I hope doesn't happen to us. I hope we always stand on the truth. I hope we have a very, very solid and firm stand on biblical doctrines, and not just the high-level doctrines, but what the Bible says, and we don't budge an inch on that. But at the same time, I hope that we also focus, right, on the body and the relationship and the love, right, for the body. Because what we see, and honestly, what is often pointed out in this 1 Corinthians 11, 17 through 34 text, is doctrinal purity and doctrinal unity. And it's there. It's absolutely there. What I don't see as much is actually what Paul stressed, which was like, maybe Christelle said it better, relational unity. Like loving each other, like preferring one before another. Not in a way that compromises doctrine, right? But in a way that says we're focused on it, and that we are focused on the health of the body of Christ. And that's what and that also means, it doesn't just mean that we forgive, right? It also means that sometimes you correct. It does. I know that's not seen as love, but Proverbs 27, 5 through 6, open rebuke is better than secret love. Right? Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. So rebuke and correction done correctly, right, is also loving the body and produces unity. Galatians 6, 1 through 3. And again, this speaks to the spirit of it. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such an one in the spirit of meekness. In the spirit of meekness. Considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Talked about that with the guys as we were praying. And man, I hope as a church we focus on that. And I believe we do, but this is one of those things that you can't check the box off and kind of move on. Like we've got it, we've done it. This is one of those things that has to be a ongoing part of and the fabric of our church. Because what does Paul say? He says, if you let your unity lapse into divisiveness, stop. And those are the seeds, like all the things that we kind of called out, right? Those are the seeds that will get us there. I mean, something as, as silly as you sat in my chair. And you knew it was my chair, right? I mean, of course they knew it was your chair. They did it to spite you. Any questions, any comments, anything that anybody else kind of saw from that or got from that they wanted to bring up? Yeah. So I think the biblical model, right, of going directly to the person, and then we kind of covered some verses on forgiveness, right, and I do think, right, seeking and giving forgiveness is and prayer, etc., is one of the big things. But then the model of going directly to the person, right, if it turns out that this is a bigger issue, right, than going to the pastor as well, and like, whether it's I'm struggling with this or I've tried to deal, with this situation and I feel like there's still some resentment or, something that's still there, and how do we deal with that? And really then, and really it's bringing things out into the light. Because that's uncomfortable, and that's what people don't like doing. I mean, I don't like doing it, right? It's uncomfortable. And Johnny.
How do we deal with people who come because of division in another church? They want to come to our church.
There's so many different flavors of that, right? Yeah. From a membership perspective, so here's, unless we're talking division because you were, there were issues like with you and their children's program, you know what I mean? Like legal, potentially law enforcement, like we're concerned for our kids type of issues. Like those, you're not welcome, right? For the safety of our kids. Other than that, you're welcome to visit. You're welcome to visit. If you want to join, then we need to address that, because you cannot hop from one church where you've caused division or you're in the midst of division and then come to this church to escape that. That's not right. That's not biblical. And you may say, hey, but we're going to get members. Those aren't the members you want. And I mean, unless they're willing to get things right and resolved, because they will drive the same behavior here. And again, that's why it's in the Bible, right? Because if people are unwilling to deal with divisiveness, there's a problem and it will continue to fester. Brother Larry. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely, right? We would call that empathy, right? That you would have enough information about them to actually be empathetic, and not sympathetic, but empathetic, and actually feel for them, which again, I would put under that big umbrella called you actually love them, right? Which is, I actually love them and I actually care about them, to think that, hey, maybe they're coming at it from this angle. But what we do is we're filled with pride, and we don't think about that. We think about how we think about things only and what it means to us, right? And that I was slighted or whatever happened. Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? All right, so feedback. Good, bad. I mean, timing-wise, it seemed okay. Does it seem helpful to take the Sunday morning message and kind of dive in and have a little bit more discussion on that? Okay. Good. All right. Let's pray. And we'll be dismissed. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I do thank you for your word. And Lord, we could go all night and diving into the different ways we could apply this. But Lord, I do pray that you would help us. Help us both now and as we grow to be a church that is united. Not compromising, but united. And Lord, united because we love you and we love your people. And even when we're slighted, even when our pride gets hurt and all those things, that we would deal with those things appropriately, Lord, so that your body would be healthy. Lord, and that's what we pray for. We just ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Thank you. You're dismissed.